I know that you sense with me something unusual in the air. On this spring day, beginning a new decade, we gather together to observe Earth Day, a day signifying our reverence and respect for the gift that creation gave to us. This Earth Day is symbolic of a change in direction for our country. By the year 1770, the young settlers on an unsullied, bountiful continent had reached the stage where they could consider embarking on an independent course. They turned their backs on the industrial civilization just expanding in Europe and plunged into the wilderness. 100 years later, young America turned from the ravages of our Civil War to tame the expanses of our West. Now, 100 years later, our nation has begun to realize that we will destroy our natural heritage unless we stop the practice of waste, extravagance, and improvidence. We may have done irremediable damage to the earth on which we live. Through ignorance and inaction, we may have already proceeded to the point where 20 or 30 years from now, man will disappear from the earth. It may be that our senseless destruction of a species of marine life will also lead in turn to our senseless destruction. It is no Cassandra who speaks of the end of man. It is the ecologist. It is not enough, then, to talk with dire foreboding of the bleak future that could be ours. We must move beyond the first act of this drama, where we have dwelled too long, and concentrate on those policies that will enhance our natural riches. First, central to survival is a philosophy, a way of life that treats every stone, every insect, every drop of water, every plant with the love and reverence that we now lavish upon humans. We do not live free of our natural surroundings. Species have come and gone over the ages because of their inability to adjust to their habitat. We must adjust as a species to be destined to disappear with the dinosaur and the homing pigeon. Second, we need a concept that goes beyond the obvious, a concept that addresses itself to the total environment and not just to the garbage dumps that foul our landscape or the oil slicks that ooze onto our precious seashores and estuaries. We must learn to use the larger consequences of our action. There is an absolute limit, for example, to the amount of combustion that one can take place within our atmosphere before the air becomes unfit to breathe, dooming us to strangulation. What is important to realize is evolving this concept of the environment, and more than ever, the past is prologue. We must learn to ask, what are the ecological consequences of our action? Third, we must recognize that planning is needed as never before. We had a margin for error in our country in the past that kept us from the consequences of our wantonness. Today, and for the future, there is no substitute for planning to ensure that the actions of 200 million people by the end of the century can serve and enhance rather than destroy our environment. Unfortunately, planning has never been a strong point in our governments. There has been an artificial dichotomy between planners and doers, with the thought on the part of the doers that the planners couldn't do. We will have to shelve this attitude and undertake planning with a vengeance if we are not to be buried under mountains of trash and choked by clouds of our pollution. Fourth, we must accompany effective planning with action. We cannot paper over our problems with planning commissions. We cannot palm off our grave ecological problems with negligible research projects. We must match our rhetoric with determined implementation. We have been alerted to the dangers. We know where the internal combustion engine will lead us if other sources of power are not found. We know about the need to see that our new atomic plants do not overheat our bays or leak radioactivity into our atmosphere. But there are vexatious problems which have not received the attention they merit. Population control remains the area in which more goes unsaid than said. Land use is another area that has been neglected.